Good morning. Welcome back to Venture Daily. On today's show, a cloud seeding startup that recently fueled conspiracy theories after the Texas floods just teamed up with an AI weather firm to squeeze more rain out of the sky with drones.
And Elon Musk AI chatbot Grok, fresh off a scandal for spewing antisemitic garbage, is now under Pentagon contract and officially for sale to every federal agency in America. I'm Josiah Simons.
I'm Jackson Fordyce. It's Tuesday, July 15th. Let's get you smarter before your first meeting. Here's a story that might make you think twice before hopping on a freight train. Turns out hackers can remotely trigger the brakes on American trains, and the rail industry has known about it for over a decade.
Yeah, an independent researcher named Neil Smith discovered the vulnerability back in 2012. It all stems from a system meant to make trains safer, basically a radio link that lets the front and back of the train communicate.
But that radio link can be hijacked. With the right knowledge and a low-powered device, someone standing nearby or even flying overhead could force a train to stop. Smith told 404 Media, quote, "All of the knowledge to generate the exploit already exists on the internet. AI could even build it for you." Smith told 404 Media, quote, "All of the knowledge to generate the exploit already exists on the internet. AI could even build it for you."
The rail industry brushed them off at first, and even now they say a fix is in the works, but there's no clear timeline. The government cybersecurity agency CISA confirmed the vulnerability and called it technically significant, but hard to exploit at scale.
Still, Smith says it wouldn't be all that difficult, and that after more than 10 years, there's no excuse for the delay. It's a reminder that even some of our most critical infrastructure is running on outdated tech and crossed fingers.
All right, Jackson, we have a great show today. Let's get into it. What is our first story?
Our first story, Rainmaker, a startup using drones to boost rainfall through cloud seeding, is joining forces with Atmo, an AI-driven weather prediction company, to supercharge the science of making it rain.
That's right. The partnership combines Atmo's cutting-edge forecasting models with Rainmaker's on-the-ground drone and radar tech, allowing them to better identify which clouds are worth seeding and to track the results.
Atmo will also begin offering Rainmaker services to clients looking to increase precipitation. Both companies hope the collaboration will help move cloud seeding from niche science to a more predictable and scalable weather solution.
Though Rainmaker has been caught in recent conspiracy theories tying cloud seeding to deadly Texas floods, experts say those claims are scientifically baseless. In reality, seeding typically produces only modest gains, a few extra inches per year, not catastrophic storms.
And for more on the story, I thought I'd talk to both the CEOs themselves, Alex Levy and Augustus Doricko.
I'm Alex Levy. I'm the CEO of Atmo. We are the leading company in AI for meteorology. We use deep learning to develop some of the most precise and accurate forecasts in the world, and we partner with amazing organizations like Rainmaker to deploy these for the benefit of humanity.
And Augustus.
Yeah, my name is Augustus Doricko. If you haven't seen me on CNN or InfoWars in the past week, I'm the CEO and founder of Rainmaker, the next-gen cloud seeding and weather modification company using advanced radar and novel drones to help mitigate drought by making it rain and snow more in arid regions across the American West and the rest of the world. And like we'll talk about today, stoked to be working more closely with Atmo.
CNN and InfoWars are the only news outlets that Josiah actually pays attention to.
That's right. I try to keep it balanced, the news intake.
Both very close to middle.
He was also on Fox News.
Yeah.
He was
Sean Ryan podcast.
Sean Ryan, but that was before these
And he came back.
Oh, he came back on the show.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he's been all over. I don't know if Joe Rogan's coming up next, but Augustus has been all around the country, basically defending cloud seeding in his company from conspiracy theorists, politicians alike. People are after his company, and we're going to hear more today why there is actually pretty much it's a baseless accusation to say that Rainmaker caused any of the flooding.
Right. And for my first question to Alex, I asked, governments can now buy a weather prediction and modification system. Whoever sees when and how this is deployed, and what stops it from being misused or politicized?
Well, I think a few things. First, it's important to know that there are some really important motivations for why governments and organizations around the world have an interest in predicting and modifying the weather. They're facing increasingly extreme weather on a number of fronts. And one of those that I think we've all been familiar with is droughts and water shortages, which are becoming ubiquitous worldwide, cause hundreds of billions of dollars in damage and problems for the world. And so leaders, are accountable to their people, and they have an urgent need for that. So Atmo has been building and operating AI weather forecasting systems. Our partner that we'll talk about today, Rainmaker, has been operating the most advanced weather modification systems. And so we saw an opportunity to address the problems of these polities around the world by providing an integration between AI forecasting and robotic cloud seeding in order to do this more effectively and to solve these water shortages that these governments have been facing.
And same question to Augustus. Who oversees when and how this is deployed, and what stops it from being misused or politicized?
Yeah, absolutely. The people that have overseen this tech are governments from the municipal, state, and federal level. And then internationally, you have different regulatory regimes, but essentially all government entities. So in the case of the federal government in the United States, we have the Weather Modification Reporting Act of 1972, which requires transparent disclosure of intent to modify the weather and then also results from weather modification. And much could be said about making that more transparent, more rigorous. I am totally in favor of both of those. But at the state level, we do have more transparent and rigorous regulation, like in the case of Texas, with the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, which issues permits for approved concepts of operations, materials, and reporting regimes. This is true of Utah, California, Oregon, Colorado, the list goes on. And the reason why states do issue these permits is because they suffer from inclement weather. They suffer from lack of water, which either means that their farms run dry, that the aquifers which supply the farms and cities run out, that the hydroelectric utilities which power a lot of these communities can't produce, or the ecosystems and environments that are dependent on abundant water dissipate and die off. And so people have been contracting with Rainmaker for the last couple of years because we could produce more water for all of those different constituencies. Now, for the second portion of your question, how do you ensure that this isn't misused? How do you ensure that this isn't used either villainously or just negligently? And I think that the answer is more transparent reporting, more rigorous permitting. If we can do those two things, if we can get the federal involvement and frankly state governments more involved in the approval process, and then also as long as companies, founders like myself or like Alex can very transparently disclose when any Americans are subject to weather modification for their benefit, right, for the sake of producing more water, I think that everybody will be more on the same page. And that's what we've seen over the course of this past week. In being radically transparent, people that were rightfully initially skeptical or curious are very much excited about cloud seeding weather mod now.
Yeah, I appreciate that he's like saying people are rightfully afraid of this. They're rightfully skeptical about it. And
it makes sense to ask the question.
Right. And so cloud seeding sounds crazy. We're modifying the weather to make it rain. That sounds like, we could have a
playing God in those moments.
Ecological disaster caused by man who, is playing with the weather. Makes perfect sense. But I like that he's saying we need to be transparent. And that's basically what Rainmaker has been on a transparency campaign for the last week.
Yeah.
Trying to tell people on Twitter, trying to tell people through these news shows of saying, hey, we didn't do this. And here's the actual evidence. We can drop millions of gallons of water, which is incredible. But that's actually a very small amount compared to the trillions of gallons of water that was coming down from storms in Texas that caused this flooding. And so, I think at one point I watched an interview where Augustus said, basically, the water that fell was 1 million times more than the water they're even able to drop.
Yeah.
So to think that somehow Rainmaker's technology or their cloud seeding that happened on July 2nd here in Texas was a cause of this is pretty preposterous. But it's totally reasonable that people would have that question.
Absolutely.
And so transparency is really important. And I wanted to speak to, Atmo's models. So check this out. This is San Francisco here. And this is it's just a still image, but this I took it was a video and I took it as a still image. This is a nanoclimate. This is just specifically San Francisco. So Atmo models provide extreme resolution in nanoclimates. What does that mean? Atmo delivers forecasts with up to 100 times greater detail with models as fine as 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer.
Wow.
Atmo offers unprecedented clarity in predicting weather for microclimates within these larger climates. This is the Bay Area. As you can check out, Atmo's ultra resolution forecast of the Bay Area on their website right now. I'd encourage you to. It's really cool. And that's what Atmo does. So Atmo is using this tech combining with Rainmaker, who's actually out there, figuring out which clouds are the
best ones to seed.
Right, the best ones to seed. So that it's kind of a match made in heaven for these two companies to come together and drop rain.
100%. And my next question for Alex is, your models claim up to 100 times more precision than traditional forecasts. How does Atmo ensure that level of accuracy holds up in the real world of chaos of climate volatility, especially when governments are making high-stakes decisions based on your predictions?
Yeah, we've got it exactly right, which is increasing the precision of weather simulation, forecasting, and ultimately modification is the reason that our companies are working together, because we see an opportunity to do this at higher and higher levels of precision, to know precisely what to do, where to do it, and what the effects of that will be across thousands of potential scenarios and operations. So that's the objective. We've been doing this since 2020 at Atmo. We were the first company in the world to have deep learning-based forecasts for the whole globe. You can see one of our models behind me. The first to do it for an entire sovereign country. We just built a new national weather model for the Philippines. We also have a great history in doing this for the U.S. military, both for the Air Force and the Navy, also in space launch meteorology across the major space launch sites. And across all those cases, the way that we get to that level of precision is we take in millions of different sensors around the world every day. So we take in approximately all world weather satellites, approximately all ground stations that report publicly, radar stations that do the same. And then we partner with individual organizations that are deploying their own sensors. So for example, in the Rainmaker case, Rainmaker has their own series of advanced radars that go beyond what's available to the general public. And that's also something that we see with some of our partners in different countries where they operate their own sensors. These very detailed sensors calibrate, correct, and confirm these high precision models. And so by doing that in all of these point ways or in a radial fashion in radar, that creates a learning loop with our deep learning weather model that allows it to achieve that level of precision.
Very cool.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask Augustus this question. Rainmaker's seeding efforts were blamed by politicians and conspiracy theorists alike for floods in Texas. But with AI and radar now in the mix, how does the industry fight fiction while scaling a technology most people barely understand?
So first of all, Rainmaker's cloud seeding operations, once again, did not have anything to do with the floods in Texas. That was a tragedy, a natural disaster. We're supporting and still praying for all of the people that were affected in Texas. Now, that being said, a lot of people did suspect that cloud seeding was responsible, or at least were suspicious that cloud seeding was responsible, in no small part because most cloud seeding hasn't had, one, transparency around it, or two, really rigorous data produced with respect to the effects of the interventions, right? And so I'm very pleased that Rainmaker has developed the internal radar capacity to measure what our effect is, but also to have it be corroborated by extraordinarily accurate, extraordinarily fast models from Atmo is going to be another touch point where we can demonstrate to the public, demonstrate to academia, demonstrate to regulators what the interventions cause and then what the benefits are, how we have done no harm. And if at any point we were to be held to account, should we do that? Thankfully, that hasn't been the case yet. Thankfully, with Atmo's modeling capabilities, which, by the way, are extraordinary, I'm very impressed. Rainmaker briefly dabbled into weather modeling, and it was a disaster. So the notion of competing along that axis, I think, would be frivolous when they have such a spectacular team. But in having Atmo's weather modeling capabilities, I think not only will we be better situated to prevent any adverse consequences from cloud seeding weather modification, but we're going to be able to maximize the benefits that we can derive from it in terms of water on the ground and when the water gets on the ground as well.
One of the superpowers of Rainmaker is not just that they're able to seed clouds with their drones. The thing that I think Rainmaker, what makes them stand out as a cloud seeding company, is they're very good at measuring actually how much precipitation came out of those clouds, how much they were able to bring out of a cloud.
They can tell you the results from that.
And so that's super important for the transparency to regulators, to the public. And so Atmo is just helping to get that even more precise so they can measure exactly how much, what the models are saying is in the air, and then they can actually go into those clouds, bring the water out. Rainmaker's technology that they already have tells them how much they've brought out of those clouds. So I'm probably not explaining this extremely well, but I think that it makes a lot of sense that if the whole goal is transparency here, which everyone's asking for amidst the floods, this partnership only helps bring more transparency.
100%. And my last question to close out is around that partnership. I asked, what's the long game here for the partnership between Atmo and Rainmaker? I'll let Alex go first.
Look, I think the long game in general that we're both really aligned on is changing humanity's relationship with the natural world for the better. We've been going around the world and in many accidental ways, modifying our environment for a very long time. And I think our general philosophy is that it's time for humanity to take responsibility for that in an active way. in a way that's guided by science, simulation, and rigorous use of these types of systems and concepts of operation that we're putting together. And when that happens, I think the long-term goal is to avert disasters, to increase prosperity, to protect people's lives, to enhance various industries like agriculture around the world. And so I think the ultimate goal is a more beautiful world where humanity has this greater responsibility over nature and to steward nature.
And Augustus, what's the long game here for the partnership?
You can tell how well this partnership's going to go and has gone based on the fact that his answer is exactly parallel with mine. I needn't waste words by reiterating that. We want a more beautiful and abundant world, and Atmo and Rainmaker are going to make that happen.
Amen. Thank you to Alex Levy and Augustus Doricko for being on the show today.
All right, Jackson, what do we have up next?
Next story. Elon Musk's AI startup XAI has landed a Pentagon contract for its new Grok for Government platform, now available to all federal agencies via the GSA schedule. The Department of Defense included XAI in a broader $200 million deal alongside OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic to fast-track AI adoption for national security.
The timing is notable. Just days ago, Grok was under fire for spouting anti-Semitic and offensive responses, calling itself Mecha Hitler and pushing conspiracy theories. XAI quickly released Grok 4, which some users noticed appeared to mirror Musk's personal views on political issues.
Internal leaks suggest Grok was intentionally designed to lean conservative, with some employees calling it the MAGA version of ChatGPT.
Despite the controversy, Grok is now cleared for official government use, raising fresh concerns about bias, security, and influence in AI deployed by the U.S. military.
And for a deeper look into the story, I spoke with Oliver Libby.
Yeah, Jackson, great to be back. Good to see you. I'm Oliver Libby, managing partner and co-founder at HL Ventures and City Rock Venture Partners.
First question for Oliver. XAI just launched Grok for Government with a $200 million DoD contract. How does a startup barely a year old become a frontline tech vendor for national security?
So, look, I don't want to make too little of this, but I do want to point out a couple of things. Grok, of course, a year old in its conception right now, but it is based on underlying technology that's been going back for a little while. Also, the contract isn't really a contract in the way that you might imagine most government contracts work. So this is up to $200 million. It is, I believe, split between all of the leading AI companies. So think of it more of like a procurement test or like a, something that these companies can use up to a certain amount. But nonetheless, it's certainly big news.
With the Pentagon awarding up to $200 million for Grok and other chatbots, are we seeing the U.S. military enter the AI arms race with too much speed and not enough guardrails?
Look, the current administration is certainly starting to take down a lot of the guardrails around defense procurement. And by the way, a lot of folks in the industry think that that is a good thing. And I think in a lot of ways, the defense procurement system is about as labyrinthine as you could imagine any system to be. So if we're going to keep up with ever fast-moving, arms races like this, we certainly need to make it easier to contract with the federal government and let the various components of the Defense Department work more quickly to try out new technologies. That said, Grok, even recently in the last week or so, has exhibited some tendencies of much less mature technology. And so there's some conditions precedent, right? So even if one were to say it's a good idea for the Pentagon to be able to play test technologies faster and procure them faster, that needs to be done with certain very, very important rules in place. Number one, we have to understand how these contracts are being awarded and make sure there's still some process around that. Number two, we really have to understand security around these things. I mean, these are private companies. By the way, you say the government's getting into AI. The government's been in AI for about as long as anybody. I mean, a lot of AI was funded with government research dollars. The intelligence agencies, security agencies, DARPA, everybody's been in it for a long time. And then last but not least, anyone who can buy these technologies off the GSA, right, which is the Government Service Administration, where it's kind of like the App Store, right, in a sense. We have to make sure that those users are trained and understand what they're using. If they just kind of type queries into Grok or get Grok working on stuff and they don't understand what the potential shortcomings are of these sorts of technologies, that can lead to real problems. So again, very interesting that you can procure these tools now. Interesting you can do so with fewer guardrails, but if that doesn't happen in the context of good security and safety and really good training and good transparency, we'd have real problems.
Yeah, I think Oliver lost a dare that he had to say the word labyrinthine in his answer.
Bigger than any word of my vocabulary.
Yeah, I've never even heard that word before, but it's
I'm going to take his word for
it.
it.
Yeah.
But speaking of GSA, like you mentioned, the GSA listing means Grok is now available to every federal agency. So should we expect a wave of rushed AI integrations across the government? And are agencies even ready for that scale?
I think you're going to see competing priorities here of folks who are saying, particularly from the highest levels or who are political appointees saying, let's get AI everywhere. And then, look, a lot of these, the Pentagon and the defense establishment in America is the world's largest organization. And it is just, suffused with real professionals who've been in their work for a long time. I started my career there. And so, there are going to be a lot of calm, cool professionals who are going to think these tools are really interesting, but they're going to move deliberately. And I think that's a really good thing, right? I mean, we are working with systems that if they were ever broken or misinformed, that'd be really bad. That you do not want, hallucinations and stuff like that in place. I mean, look, an old school example of this is a famous story about Boris Yeltsin being brought reports that the U.S. had launched nuclear weapons against Russia, and it turns out that it was the radar misreading a flock of birds. You don't want the AI equivalent of that happening. So that just, again, it's very exciting to integrate these technologies. Our adversaries are certainly doing so, right? So we have to be in this game. We just have to do it smart.
Not that I'm necessarily taking a side here, but I can already see the headlines. Like, if 99% of the time this AI is great and helps people, but then that 1% we have some big mess up or even a small mess up, I already see every headline is going to be about how, oh my gosh, AI is hallucinating.
We need more guardrails.
This is in the DoD. Like, this is really causing huge problems. When in reality, it's like no one's talking about the upside and the fact that this is more of a positive thing. This is just me from the outside. I'm not necessarily taking a side, but you can see that how that could happen. See that, like, it makes a lot of sense that, it's a juicy headline, but in reality, I think this thing is probably, for the most part, pretty harmless.
Right. For my last question for Oliver, I asked, Musk's xAI now joins OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google as official federal AI providers. How will Grok's controversial brand and Musk's political volatility impact adoption in Washington?
I think it's a really interesting question, Jackson. I'm really not so sure a lot of the people within the government really are following, what we who follow tech know about these various companies. Like, they're going to take a look at the requirements that they have and try and run them against it. I think, they like, technologies that have a little more pedigree, that have been in play for longer. So I think that probably doesn't help Grok necessarily. But a lot of this is branding, right? I mean, the GSA, it is a little bit like an app store. And so, look, I also think that it would be hard to ignore Elon's up and down relationship with the administration, let's call it, and whether or not certain folks within the defense establishment don't want to pick a fight with the administration and so might go to one of the others. I don't know how to handicap that. But I do think a lot of the folks making buying decisions deep in the government aren't nearly as focused on like who owns these AIs and what they do than we are who follow this every day.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Thank you to Oliver Libby for being on the show today.
All right, Jackson, that is it for Venture Daily. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope we helped you get a little bit smarter today. And if you are here still at the end of the show, let us know. Comment down below.
Comment Rainmaker.
Comment Rainmaker or say, I hate Rainmaker, if that's what you feel. We just want to comment. So let us know what you think of the show.
Yep. And thank you to Content Stack for letting us film here every single day in Austin, Texas at the Content Stack Experience Center. If you like today's show, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or X, leave us a like, a comment, and a review. Throw us a 5-star rating if you think we earned it. And as always, we'll see you here tomorrow morning at Venture Daily.